All right, we're back. My new policy is just record. Don't think about it. So hopefully this works out. I put together a 3-part review of federalism for you. We're going to start with just the definition. So federalism is just the division of power between federal, state, and local governments. In this first video, we're just going to talk about what those different powers are. So it kind of starts with the difference between a unitary government and a federal government. So a unitary government is just like one government. So a government with one total central power. Russia is like this, for instance. They don't have individual state governments like we do. That's called a federal government. So a federal government has and I'm sorry for this, but a national, I know Janet hates it, but like a national or central government is the federal government. It all means the same thing. And the central government shares powers with the states and with the local governments like Los Angeles. So this makes it super complicated to understand the dynamics between state law and the federal law. But the fact of the matter is you can break different laws. You can break a local law in Los Angeles and get arrested by LAPD. You could break a state law and be arrested by the sheriff. Or you can commit a federal crime and be indicted by like the IRS or the FBI or the CIA, depending on the level of your crime. So it's a bit more structured. Okay, so there's some definitions we should know, and that's just the difference of the types of powers given in the Constitution. So we study the Constitution, the Bible of our class, right? Thanks, Jimmy, for hanging on to that. And the powers listed in that Constitution are called delegated powers. They're also sometimes the word expressed or enumerated is used, expressed or enumerated, meaning they're like listed specifically or numbered in the Constitution. But basically, delegated powers just means the powers that the federal government, i.e. our Congress, our president, our Supreme Court, are specifically addressed in the Constitution about what they can do. Implied powers are not specifically listed in the Constitution. They go beyond enumerated powers. So things like the necessary and proper clause, which we'll talk about in another video, gives Congress the power to do things that maybe aren't specifically listed in the Constitution, such as a national bank. It also kind of an implied power, sometimes called a reserved power, gives the president to do things beyond what is specifically stated in the Constitution, such as write executive orders. So a reserved power, as expressed in the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, is reserved to the states. So things that, anything that's not listed or said, anything that is not mentioned in the Constitution can therefore almost be left up to the states, with some exceptions that are listed in the Constitution. So the Constitution does sometimes say what the states cannot do. And then finally, there is such a thing as concurrent powers. So these are powers shared by the federal and state government. So tax laws are a great example of this. Both the state can tax you. There are local taxes as well. There's like different sales tax in Los Angeles, for example. When you go to San Francisco, they have taxes for like restaurant workers. When you go to a restaurant, there might be like a little tax that the city has passed to help pay for healthcare in certain restaurants. And then the federal government taxes your income. So that money is automatically taken out and pays for federal programs. And same with the state. The state also takes out some income tax. So, oh no, let me see if I can fix this. There we go. So this shows you the division of powers. between a national, state, and what they share. So the national powers, the delegated powers are things like the power to make treaties. So the president has the power to make treaties with the approval of the Senate. They can regulate the postal system, which seems to be something Trump is trying to get rid of, which is insane. They regulate interstate commerce, so commerce that goes between states, taxes, imports, exports. The federal government can declare war on another country, maintain a military, coin money, protect patents, make all laws that are necessary and proper to meet the responsibilities of the US Constitution. So this is the necessary and proper clause. State governments establish local governments like Los Angeles, so they incorporate cities into the state. They regulate intra-state commerce, so commerce that is happening within the state. Public education, they fund schools, so the money that goes to the school actually comes, some of that funding comes from the state, some might come from federal funding. The states hold elections. They provide for common good, protecting the health and welfare of their citizens. So that's why during this COVID-19 pandemic, that the states have made a lot of the rules about shutting down and instituting a shelter-in-place safety measure. There's also regulations for marriage, licensures. So actually cities give out licenses for marriage and stuff, and business licenses, building licenses, all come from the state and local governments. And then all powers not delegated to the national government or denied to by the states per the US Constitution are reserved to the states. So this is actually the 10th Amendment right here. Basically what the 10th Amendment references. And then we have the concurrent powers in the middle there. So both can collect taxes, regulate banks, establish a judiciary, borrow money, provide for the common good, and make and enforce laws. This provide for the common good has actually come into conflict. Trump made a statement that the governors can't do anything that he doesn't stipulate, something like that. But anyway, it was kind of both the state and federal government should protect and provide for the common good. Some of the most important, sorry for all the uhs, some of the most important provisions in the Constitution are the Commerce Clause, the Necessary and Proper Clause, and the 10th Amendment. I should have circled that one. But we're going to cover those in more detail in another video. But these are the powers. These are the things you should know for that concept application question. Things that you might be able to reference as a power dynamic or process of government. This video I like as just an example of different levels of government
Our
powers.
government is like a big three-layer cake. We have local government, state government, and national government, often called federal government. But your local government doesn't handle foreign affairs, and your federal government doesn't handle trash pickup. Local government handles local issues like police, water, and building permits. State government handles issues about your state, such as education, healthcare, and recreation. Federal government handles national issues such as national parks, the military, and space exploration. The U.S. Congress is a part of our federal government. This system of dividing responsibilities among governments is called federalism. And that's another fact of Congress.
So meta, putting a video within a video. Here we go. So next up, we'll talk about the elastic and commerce clauses in more detail.